It's Friday, Feedback Friday, the feedbackiest day of the week. Ha! It's Feedback Friday. And of course, Wednesday night, my DMs kind of blew up with the whole Loki season finale thing. I'm gonna limit my comments because I will rant for 2 friggin' hours if I don't contain myself. Um, my two jokes about the Loki show is one, it is the story of if Loki were a Karen, female Loki spends the entire series demanding to speak to the manager. And the other is it was the story of Tom Hiddleston's short-lived relationship with Taylor Swift. Therefore, Tom Hiddleston got the Taylor Swift song out before Taylor Swift. Those are my two jokes. I'm going to leave it there. If you like this sort of stuff, help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/Leanna K. Sorry about the lighting. I'm having trouble with, so I'm super, too bright here. Ginger problems. I have my opinions about the Loki show, the Black Widow show, all that stuff. I don't like getting into, because of the sort of asymmetrical power dynamics, the sort of strength in numbers versus sort of the bully pulpit of the person recording the videos. I don't like to get into, was it a good series? Was it a bad series? Was it a good movie? Was it a bad movie? I prefer to isolate particular concepts to discuss, like the stuff about the awesome box and the not awesome box. I love that stuff. I love developing tools. That's way more interesting to me than whether somebody liked or didn't like a particular character. I'm also trying to avoid too many additional spoilers because Disney Plus is a premium service. Not everybody's had a chance to watch it. Some people binge watch. Movies, to me, it's more like, not now because of COVID, but movies are more, most people who really care passionately see it in the first week. And then it's fair game. Also with movies, people can not watch the video right away. So that's fine. Yeah, people need to be allowed to like stuff. People need to be allowed to not like stuff. And that's why I prefer to sort of come up with jokes. I will admit the final boss character in Loki, phenomenal. Loved it. Loved every minute. Can't wait to see more. And my favorite moments in the entire Loki show was every time Tom Hiddleston did I'm a theatrical actor, so I'm going to flip my hair so my cape and costume that don't exist now are going to not fall in my face. And every time he did it, and his hair didn't move, and his tie did, I laughed my butt off. It was fun. Please, more of that, less of the deconstruction, right? And it just seems that we're in that moment, right? Where everything needs to be deconstructed. And we had a long talk about this on Twitch on Thursday about how I find me more and more stories with just simple premises that allow them to have a fun journey are appealing to be more, because then the characters can come out more, right? Than these really complex, convoluted plots that try to do all the things at once. Maybe if I close this, it'll be less angry. That's okay. That's a bit of mood lighting. I don't understand why Disney Marvel insists on overcomplicating these stories with actors that have been doing these characters for years. They know what they're doing. Just give them a playground to play and let them go. These really should be performance-driven vehicles at this point. Let's hope that they'll let Florence Pugh do that with Black Widow 2 in a way that Scarlett Johansson was never allowed to with Black Widow 1. That's my one hope for that handoff. But yeah, we had a lot of discussions about rigidity with all this stuff about gender identity and sexual orientation and all that stuff, and instead of freeing us more, it's actually putting people in increasingly smaller boxes, and people seem to be going, I don't know what label to apply to myself. And I really think human beings are not at our best when we are doing all this ongoing sub-processing regarding that. I think there should be more focus on being the best individual you can possibly be, and less worrying about where the sorting hat is putting you in this world. And we gotta be careful with the inclusion, right? Because unfortunately, the people making these decisions in media are horrible assholes. Many keystrokes were made about Ike Perlmutter being the reason that we didn't get a Black Widow movie until now. I think it goes deeper than that. I said on Twitter, and I stand by it, Disney needs to admit that in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they're not good at writing women, and they need to hire people who can help them with that, who they will listen to. Because the problem, I maintain, is that the male characters are allowed to be individuals. They are really, really refined about who they are as characters. Whereas characters like Black Widow and Captain Marvel and even Sylvie on Loki have to be representations of women, meaning they end up very flat and ill-defined. And that doesn't lead to interesting characters. Now, I mean, you could say, well, there need to be a lot more women in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Well, no. Even when it was just, Iron Man, he was a defined character. I mean, Cinematic Universe Iron Man was defined by Robert Downey Jr. playing him. It was a brilliant bit of casting, the shorthand. But even in those early days where this was no sure thing, they defined each male character individually. They all had distinct personalities. And I think part of the problem was there was such a culture war around the Captain Marvel movie. We didn't have those. Well, one person on Twitter said that those discussions were drowned out. The meaningful discussions about the flatness of Captain Marvel's character, that deliberate artistic choice, and it not working. That got drowned out by the, if you don't like this movie, you're a misogynerd. I don't think that's fair. The reasons somebody doesn't like the movie are important. Also, it's a movie. No one should be required to like a movie, I don't think every movie should be for everyone. Even the big blockbusters. I think the blockbusters, you want to be more accessible, but you cannot make any piece of art for everyone, right? I mean, I like the Ant-Man movies a lot more than a lot of people. I think that sort of, early Edgar Wright spin on the whole thing was cool. I like the original Thor and Captain America more than a lot of people. I like the ensemble films, like the Avengers films. I like them a lot less than other people. You know what? That's fine. That doesn't mean my point of view is invalid. That doesn't mean other people's point of view is invalid. The problem is that the discussions surrounding whether people liked it or whether people don't like it get so ugly so fast. And let's all be thankful that Marvel stuff hasn't become as toxic as Star Wars did. Because that got really bad. And my opinion is, It's interesting because a few people in comments is good that Leanna finally sees these are crap because she hand waved away Star Wars. I never said I thought the Star Wars movies were brilliant. They were just okay. Not agreeing that Rey is a Mary Sue and having a different take on the problems with Rey as a character does not mean I'm singing the praises of these films. So I don't know where people or the person got the idea that I was defending the Star Wars franchise. I just like things, didn't like things in a different way. You guys gotta remember as well, I'm original Star Wars generation, right? So I have already had my spirit crushed by the 90s prequels. It's sort of just like scar tissue at this point with me in Star Wars. You know, it's like, you can't hurt me anymore. I've already been burned. But I thought that interpretation was interesting. You know, I really think that collective we, right? Not a terribly useful idea. People in positions to facilitate dialogue, like myself, need to get better at, and it's a very murky gray area of the difference between disagreeing with someone's viewpoint and treating that viewpoint as invalid on subjective stuff, right? Like, I've never really understood why people get so at loggerheads with each other over fictional media. The stuff's not real. I know that the vast majority of, creatives that I've worked with, the last thing they want is for people to fight over their stuff, And I think that stuff like the Marvel movies, stuff like the Star Wars movies, they mean an awful lot to an awful lot of people on a level that I don't totally get, because I don't need media to validate me. Like, I gave up on media validating me a long time ago. I mean, my physical description is the thing that gets race swapped all the time in movies now, and I have to accept I understand it because of the theory that it's representation. And, I always joke that the problem with being a ginger is there just aren't enough of us to complain in numbers. So I get it. If you're trying to sell toys based on little boy looks like this or little girl looks like this, it makes a lot more sense to take a ginger kid and make them a black person or a Latin person or, Asian person. I get that in terms of sheer business. And, I grew up with not many human characters that looked like me. There's Anne of Green Gables, Pippi Longstocking, Annie, and, Lion-O from Thundercats. Guess what I gravitated to? Lion-O from Thundercats, freaking awesome, man, right? The evil ginger is sort of a stereotype that doesn't get talked about a lot. It's up there with, like, the evil albino, which gets more attention for some odd reason. But I don't think, if I was stuck on only being inspired by characters that looked like me or checked the same identifier boxes as I did, I would have had very little to pick from, I talk about a lot that sort of the character I connected with is like an older kid, early teenager was Beast from X-Men. Just because he was really smart, but mostly what people responded to was the way he looked. Yeah. You know, that ginger kid awkward phase, you feel like a fucking monster, man. I might as well have just been a blue furry beast during that period. Kids were fucking cruel. But like, I don't think kids should be forced into those boxes, and it really seems like this representation strategy is doing that. And I want to be able to have a more diverse roster of people on film. And I mean, I've been open on Twitch that I think that on paper, you know, the Sylvie character in Loki, had she been played by somebody like Hannah John Kamen, would have brought an energy to that character that would have made her much more likable, to me, much more believable in the part. And of course, Hannah John Kamen doesn't look anything like Enchantress 2. And I would have been fine with that. Because it's not super important how that character looks. Because it's a torquing of that character to begin with. So why not? Well, of course, Hannah John Kamen is already Ghost, which I hope they use her more, because shit, she's just, please, more just Hannah John Kamen. In everything. She's, and more people with that energy, right? The physicality she brings to those parts, just epic. And I do think we're sort of settling that, well, we get female-led movies, and so we sort of take it and pretend to like it and don't complain. And I think we really should be demanding better so that they get better. The problem is, I think people are afraid of the, movies with female leads don't sell. I think we should be beyond that now, just because of how much money the Wonder Woman movie made. But Hollywood loves to dismiss those things as anomalies. And it's a difficult catch-22, because I understand why people are very hesitant to, you know, very hesitant to complain, because I don't want it taken away completely. But that just shows how bad the problem is, right? Like, all these myths about what people will like and won't like. And that's why the Wellness Wednesday video discussion around anime was so interesting, even though, you know, Wellness Wednesday gets fewer views than other, but the dialogue surrounding them is so good. I keep doing them because there are more things in life than views. But the discussion about, you know, some people said, well, anime still falls into the tropes, and yeah, but there's so many more slots for female characters to end up in. You know, at least we get the 10 to 12 tropes that male characters get in the West with women as well, all those subcategories. Even though they're cliches, there's a lot more cliches to pick and play off of, as opposed to the 2 to 3 women are allowed in Western media. I mean, women are depicted as, you know, obsessed with family and identity, appropriately insecure, but they still pull it out at the end, and often along for the ride in their own story, because if you're too much of a, what they call a tall poppy, or a try-hard, or an overachiever, well, then other women won't like you. It's just fucking toxic shit, right? I mean, anime displaces reality in a way. They're like, no, we're not saying anything about behavior of women in the real world. We're just telling a cool story with characters we like. Deal. Interestingly, it was pointed out in comments that anime characters, like anime heroes, often have moments where they're like, I'm not strong or experienced or confident enough to do this yet. I got to go back to the drawing board, get help, get more training, come back and do it later. As opposed to this Western superhero thing of hero is thrown into foreign situation, figures it out on the fly perfectly the first time. It's the option C Batman Superman thing of you're given a binary choice of two bad options, so there's always an option C, you better find it. And well, I'm all for lateral thinking, sometimes that's just not reality. And I do agree that, I mean, it is definitely an anime thing where characters freeze up or choke or make an impetuous mistake, and there are pretty serious consequences in anime. But they're not just completely dismissed and seen as a villain. They're given a chance to try again and get better. And I do think that's a lot healthier, especially since we know that one of the things that sort of plagues girls, especially in adolescence, is this belief that skill and talent is innate. You're either good at something or not good at something, because women are given less examples of women fucking up and getting another crack at it in public. I mean, whether it's Gina Carano or Britney Spears or, you know, women are punished for not being the ideal that the world forces on them to a much greater extent than I mean, when you get into non-white men, there's some pressure too. But you know what I mean? Like, just there's this, everybody is sort of hinting around the fact that, yeah, Gina Carano got it harder because she's female. Britney Spears, you know, ended up in a conservatorship when, you know, Kanye West was allowed to just be a fucking crazy man, in part because of her gender and age. The thing is, there's no proof of that. It's not so neat. You can't isolate stuff. And I really think in some ways that is a distraction from the greater question of, in Britney Spears' case, it's a difference between, the question should not be whether she's mentally ill or not, whether she's a good person or not. The question is whether adults have the right and freedom to fuck up their own life and possibly the lives of their children, minor children, right? And I think a lot of people would say, yes, to the adult, somebody should be looking out for minor kids, right? I think that's where the Overton window is on that one. With the Gina Carano thing, that, you know, that is one of those things where a PR problem was treated like a moral problem, and it's incredibly unfortunate because, you know, plenty of people of similar profile have said contentious things. You know, we got into a really interesting debate about, you know, James Gunn. I keep going, no, it's not James Gum, because I was watching Clarice. It's James Gunn. But the fact that he managed to get uncanceled, and, you know, the reasons for that and the various theories of, oh, it was actually like right-wing people that started his cancellation. And I don't think that's it. Frankly, my view is cynical. Marvel didn't want him until DC did, and then Marvel wanted him back. It didn't hurt that his actors, like the stars of the film, rallied around James Gunn, like his Guardians cast. But, you know, Carl Weathers supported Gina Carano, and it didn't really seem to do much. The knives were just out for Gina Carano. I really do think that because she is an atypical looking woman, people expected her to be some paragon of virtue and somehow be woke in all things gender, and that is just not fair. That is not fair to put on someone who never claimed to be that, you know. And I really appreciate that we can have these discussions. I mean, Twitch is a great format for that because it's a few dozen people regularly. Sometimes there's more, depending, but it's not thousands of people on my Twitch channel, so everybody can speak and everybody can get a turn, and we can actually discuss stuff while I'm beating up street punks and Yakuza and like doing the real estate games. I like the ability to have those sort of group discussions and go back and forth and go, okay, yeah, I hear you. Here's another point of view. And you can do that in the Twitch format in a way I can't do on YouTube, because obviously these are like, 20 to 30 minute monologues that people then comment on. And we do get a dialogue through this Feedback Friday, but it's just so much more immediate with Twitch. And I like the format just because it's like, it isn't, we got into a discussion of why I don't like the whole take the L thing in social media. Because the minute someone says take the L, they've just proven that they're focused on winners and losers in a fight, not learning things through dialogue. If everything is that binary, there must be a winner and there must be a loser, you're not open to different points of view. Because if you change your mind, you're a loser. And this is the problem, that people get entrenched. All they did with Gina Carano is just push her into that Daily Wire dark side. Why should she listen to another side now? They cost her a job she loved just because she wasn't informed enough and dared to say something on social media, right? Meanwhile, Elon Musk can troll up a fucking storm and somehow make it work for him. Yes, he's a controversial figure, but he's allowed to be, right? And that's not helping. That's not helping people learn. That's just pushing people towards, extreme, intractable points of view that isn't good for anybody and certainly doesn't make better art. It doesn't make better art. It doesn't get anybody a job. It's just, why do we care so much about the moral purity of somebody's 20-year-old tweets when they were a completely different person? I don't know. Like, I really don't know why the internet cares so much about somebody's tweets from 10 years ago. It's just baffling to me. Would I reject someone because of something they said 10 years ago? No, I'm going to assume they're a different person now, right? God, I hope they're a different person now. If somebody's not a better person now than they are 10 years ago, something's wrong. So why are we doing this? Because it's all the L and the W. It's all black and white. It's all good guys and bad guys. And we have an opportunity through stories to take our understanding of the world beyond that. And I'm not claiming that everything should be shades of gray, no moral high ground. Quite the opposite. I believe in objective right and wrong. I just think that we should question, that sort of morality and not be so knee-jerk about it. And on that note, I am going to gloat a little bit. The end of Loki, a bit of spoiler, was pretty much exactly the exact same scenario as the Jax ending of Mortal Kombat 11 that I got called a racist for because I said they actually made Jax into a villain there. You don't cure slavery. You don't abolish slavery from history by taking away everyone's free will. Well, they did the exact same thing with the yet unnamed villain, but any nerd went, yeah! Who would that? That Kang the Conqueror, man. And a wonderful take on Kang the Conqueror it is, but they made him a black dude because, yeah, he was an Egyptian ruler. So, okay, they made him a Nubian Egyptian ruler. Perfectly fine. But, you know, he self-references as a villain because he knowingly took away people's free will for the greater good. And they call him a villain. The exact same thing I got called a racist for. I'm going to take the W. That was a joke, right? If you like jokes, help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK, because I said on Twitter, if I can't make fun of something in my own content, I need to go back to the drawing board. Thanks for watching.